So, two major theme parks saw customers die recently after partaking in rides. We start with Disneyland and the Haunted Mansion attraction because why? People are flocking there right now. It's October, it's Halloween season. Everybody loves a good scare. But unfortunately, one visitor, and I want to say she was in her 60s, on October 6th at Disneyland in California, she was on the Haunted Mansion ride and apparently suffered a heart attack. The paramedics tried CPR. They could not revive her. Unfortunately, she has passed away. And one of the questions that I want to start with is, this isn't the first time that somebody has lost their life at a theme park, but this case is a bit different to me, you guys, and we're going to talk about a couple others. This is a bit different because this is not a case of where a ride falls off the rails and somebody, falls to the ground 25 feet. This is really kind of just an innocent little easy ride where you intentionally get scared. You're on the ride to get scared. And if you have a heart attack, you suffer a heart attack on something like that, whose responsibility is it? Do you have a case against the theme park? Is it your own fault? Do you waive those rights when you buy the ticket? Yeah. Who wants to go first?
I'll take it. So you waive those kind of things when you buy the ticket. But let's talk about this ride. This ride is the most tame ride that anybody could think of. It's very, very low speed. It's supposed to be like a haunted mansion, but it's not even that. It's funny. It's not even scary, right? And so the idea that this ride would cause a heart attack in someone who perhaps she was predisposed to having a heart attack. Maybe she had an underlying heart condition. Maybe she knew about it. Maybe she didn't. But I think it would be extremely difficult to prove that this ride is the cause of her heart attack. That's what they would have to prove to have any kind of claim. So not only do I think she waived any claims by buying the ticket, if you read the fine print, it's there, believe me. And secondly, even if she hadn't waived those claims, I think that, you kind of voluntarily assume the known risks when you get on these theme park rides. That being said, this one wasn't all that risky, okay? And so you're just not going to be able to prove that the heart attack, which unfortunately was fatal, was caused by the ride or anyone's negligence in operating or designing that ride. I don't think she's got a case, but I'm sure one of you guys might.
I do not disagree with you at all, Phil. You nailed the issues. Assumption of the risk. Listen, I've been going to Disney World here in Florida since I'm a little boy, and I don't remember a lot of things, but I do remember those really scary signs where you can go on It's a Small World and die. I mean, they warn you even on the most, simple and innocuous of rides. Certainly on something like that, the sign's out there. You make a decision, a conscious, knowing, voluntary decision of whether you want to go on that ride. And it's going to make your heart race a little bit. That's what we like about those rides. And you take that chance. And if you die, that's sad. But you can't go sue Mickey Mouse.
Well, it's been done before. People have suffered similar injuries and sued before. There was a case back in 2009 where a teenage girl had a heart attack. Now, here's the thing about this case. On a similar ride that wasn't, what was this one called? It was a terror ride, but she did ride it. What was it? The Mountain of Terror? A Tower of Terror. Thank you. Yeah. But she rode it 4,000 times. She rode it a lot. And then on the last ride, she suffered a stroke. And this family sued as well. And that case was dismissed. But sometimes, you guys, cases are dismissed because they settle confidentially, especially we're going back over a dozen years. So that's my guess of what would have happened in that.
That ride was very different. It was described as like a hotel elevator that zooms up then plunges down over and over and over again. And look, I just think common sense tells you that the human body is not designed to be, taken and shaken like that. And it just, to think that you might have some kind of internal injury from doing that repetitive action. It's an extreme action too, by the way, over and over and over again. That falls also, I think, into this thing where you kind of voluntarily assume the known risk. And not only do you do that, you voluntarily assume that risk over and over and over again as well. And yeah, maybe there was a confidential settlement, but I bet it wasn't a big one. Sometimes these things settle as what we call nuisance value settlements just to make it go away because maybe it costs more to litigate the case, paying attorneys and other types of costs associated with litigation than it would to just, give them $50,000 and tell them to go away. But, this whole thing about the Haunted Mansion, it's not even close to being equivalent to that terror ride. So, it takes a lot, I think, to establish clear liability by theme parks. And if you notice, they don't really take these things to trial that often because if they have liability, they're going to do a confconfidential settlement because they don't want anybody else to see the blueprint.
But Phil, you know what? There is a case that's going to, I guarantee you there's a case that's going to, well, it might not go to trial, but it's going to be brought. Similarly, another recent case, but this is a little bit different. Kevin Zavala, Universal Studios roller coaster death. Now, we have a guy here who's being represented, the family's being represented by Ben Crump because he rode the Stardust Racers coaster. And he had actually a pre-existing condition, atrophy of the spinal cord, but that did not stop him from getting on this ride. Unfortunately, he did not get off alive. Now, this one is an actual physical ride. And I do just have to say, Ben Crump should have the body of an Adonis from all the ambulances that he chases. But before we discuss, let's talk about that. Let's roll SOT 2.
The president of Universal Epic put out some statement to her team members after the tragedy. And in large part, she says safety is and always will be at the forefront of everything we do. Well, Universal, these words ring hollow in light of you reopening the Starduster coaster this weekend without giving Kevin's families any answers. And it has Kevin family asking the questions. Are they putting profit over people?
Mark,
no, they're not.
You're in Florida. You're in Florida.
Yeah. I'm not responsible for him. Listen, saying it passionately and because you have a death doesn't mean that anybody's responsible. How many millions of people have been on that coaster before and after? And quite frankly, if I'm the next one to go on that coaster, don't you shut it down for me because he has some pre-existing condition and chose to go on the ride. It's sad. I'm sorry they lost their loved one. I have family members. I don't want to lose my family members. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a payday for you. And that's exactly what this looks like.
I'm really concerned that a person with spinal cord atrophy is allowed to get on a ride that's
in a wheelchair.
Jarring. Roller coasters are not, I just don't think you should be allowed to get on one. And you shouldn't even be allowed to waive your rights and get on one.
Well, that's his choice. You shouldn't try to get on there. He was using a wheelchair, okay? This young man who unfortunately lost his life, but he was in a wheelchair. And as you mentioned, he had spinal cord atrophy. But let me just ask a question. Maybe it's a rhetorical question, and I want to hear what you two have to say, but I also want to challenge our audience, whether you're listening on podcast or watching on video in the comments, if you can answer this question for me, okay? Do these types of press conferences where, you wave around statements and you make big grandiose speeches and you talk about how sad it is that somebody's died and you invite all the local media, and impassioned speeches. Do these press conferences make a difference? Do these press conferences make you more likely to side with the plaintiff if you're on the jury? What purpose does this type of grandstanding actually serve? And does it make sense? Because to me, it doesn't make sense. I don't think I've ever done a press conference related to a case. I've walked out of courthouses and meetings with the cops where the media was there and they wanted to ask me some questions, fine. But I've never staged a press conference like this, and I don't see what the value is in it. And it just really is a head scratcher to me.
Can you
I wish
pick
someone
me?
could help me out.
You go ahead, Jonna. We select you. Go ahead.
Okay, pick me.
You speak.
Here's why. Here's why, Phil. Because that is free advertisement. Because what he is saying with the oh my God, and he's dead, and how dare you let other people ride the rides is. Anybody who's ever stubbed their freaking toe at Universal, Disneyland, Disney World, whatever, is going to be like, let me call Ben Crump. Let me bring the ambulance to him so he doesn't have to chase mine. That's why they do it. That him, and he's not alone. He's not alone.
Does he actually file lawsuits on these things? And does he litigate these cases? And
I think he does.
He just gets the check. Whatever it takes to get the check. You might not have to file a lawsuit. You write a couple of letters.
I don't believe it's the case here. But there are matters that he and other lawyers like him take up where there are dangerous situations that are going ignored by corporations. And by putting it out there, it does have a value. I don't believe this is that case. I believe this looks like a money grab. When you can't identify what they did wrong and you're just saying, well, they're starting back the ride and they don't care about lives. What does that mean? Well, no, your client assumed a risk. And I disagree with Phil. I think that people in wheelchairs, if they want to go on a ride and they know that it's a risk, let them do it. I'd be the one championing their effort. You want to go? There have been thousands of people this year in wheelchairs who went on that ride and did just fine. So I don't know that you deprive people of their opportunity to waive their rights and go on a ride and assume responsibility for what happened.
Every roller coaster I've been on says if you've got back problems, don't get on this ride. Right, every single one I've ever been on.
He saw it,
and you shouldn't need to be told that. I have an idea, though. I have a new niche for us. Ready? Here's what we're gonna do.
Tell us.
We're gonna stand outside of Disneyland, Universal, whatever, and we're gonna offer will packages, last will and testament packages. So when you buy your ticket for the rides, we'll give you a quickie will, all good, flat fee, have fun.